Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello and welcome to Program Insight in Videos English. Dear viewers, there is a very important development, that is 2025 annual US intelligence threat assessment has come out. It is one of the most significant threat assessment based on the information which US intelligence community gathered through its sources, and ultimately finds out that which are the major potential threats to the American national security. So, on the basis of this particular assessment, the report has highlighted that there are different type of threats to the United States security. As far as countries are concerned, among the countries, according to report, that and China remains one of the biggest threat to the U.S. economic interest, to the U.S. Military interest, and to the U.S. security. Among them, it has also mentioned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan and expressed concern that its ties are growing with Al Qaeda. And previously, it could have posed a serious threat to the American national security by having a capability in the past to target American interest and American installations. In addition to this, in the U.S. intelligence threat assessment, it has also been said that Iran is not developing nukes. On the other hand, it has also mentioned some of the non-state actors which may pose a serious threat. That includes human trafficking, that includes cyber attacks, that include terrorism, that include many other things. In today's discussion, we will discuss this all. And at the end, we would also like to discuss that how Pakistan sees this particular US intelligence threat assessment. What could be lessons for Pakistan? And after going through this entire threat assessment, how Pakistan could definitely deal with its own national security, keeping in view, as in the beginning I said, that there is a potential threat from banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan. To discuss this all, we are fortunate to have with us Senior Strategic Affairs Analyst, Dr. Syed Muhammad Ali. Dr. Syed Muhammad Ali, sir, very warm welcome to Program Insight. Dr. Saab, you have definitely gone through this very strategically important document, which is U.S. Annual Intelligence Threat Assessment. I would like to seek your comment that how it is different from previous Biden administration. Because when there was Biden administration in power, their threat assessment angles and approach used to be different one. And this one is totally different one. So why there is a difference while the Democrats, when they were in power, and no Republicans?
Thank you so much for having me on this important subject on your very popular show, Mr. Mateen. I think the U.S. has a long-standing tradition of having a very important policy document like the annual threat assessment by each incoming administration. And if we were to trace U.S. history after Second World War, in the last 80 years, we have witnessed that each incoming new administration brings its own annual intelligence threat assessment, which is a very useful and informative document because it was presented by the Director of National Intelligence before the U.S. Congress, Tulsi Gabbard, and it indicates the intelligence, U.S. Several intelligence agencies' assessment, priorities, approaches, concerns regarding not just friends, allies and partners, but also towards challengers, enemies, terrorists, and other non-state actors and criminals. So it also not only guides the U.S. Congress about the U.S. administration and intelligence community's threat assessment, but it is very useful for the international community around the world to gauge who the U.S. perceives as a friend, as a partner, as a threat, or as a challenger. And it is useful to shape their relations and policies accordingly. Coming to your question, each U.S. administration brings several documents during their terms. The annual threat assessment is one of the first documents. In fact, it is very important because this is the first document which officially the Trump administration has been issued after rejoining the Oval Office. And in the days to come, you will see the U.S. national security strategy, and you will also see U.S. National defense strategy in the next few months, which will showcase Trump administration's threat priorities, and this will also indicate which countries the U.S. will engage with, which policy instruments it will use, towards which types of threats it is likely to allocate greater defense allocation, and it will also impact the U.S. defense budget significantly. So, briefly put, I think it is very different in form, in priorities, in approach from the Biden administration's annual threat assessment. Because if you look at its layout and the structure of the 32-page document, it first identifies the threat from the non-state actors. And in the second category, it discusses the individual countries which the US considers as either challengers or regional threats. So that structure itself indicates that the Trump administration is likely to expect its intelligence community and defense community to have a more aggressive and immediate focus towards non-state actors like terrorist organizations and criminals, cartels, and those people who are involved in illegal human trafficking. Whereas the threats posed by different states are considered as medium or long-term multi-domain challenge to US supremacy at the global or regional level. That is the second difference. The third difference is there is a greater emphasis on unilateral use of economic coercion, technology denial, and disrupting the global supply chain of China. And less emphasis is on direct military confrontation. And a fourth difference is that the approach towards Moscow, despite considering Russia as a major challenger, is less aggressive. And lastly and fifthly, I think there is an absence of any mention of how US soft power can be used around the world in promoting and protecting US values, interests, and way of life, which used to be a key aspect of the Biden administration. And the last aspect is that you are likely to see more unilateral approach in the use of US power instruments, and there is less focus on building and maintaining alliances and partnership around the world.
Dr. Syed Muhammad Ali Saab, in depth you talked about different type of threats and things like that, and you also said that one of the copy of this assessment is also shared with the US Congress. My specific question is how implementation mechanism is adopted. What is the implementation mechanism? Because as you said that this particular document is based on intelligence assessment by several other intelligence agencies and system of the United States. So it's a strategically very, very important document. Please share your thoughts that how this document is implemented, what steps United States would be taking to ensure that its economic interests are protected, its national security is protected, it is ensured that no attack take place against United States, and there is no attack on the U.S. interests worldwide. There are several U.S. ships, interests, bases all over the world. So implementation mechanism.
I think the first most important thing to realize is that this is the first document which has been issued at the policy level by the U.S. Director of National Intelligence based on the input from all major U.S. intelligence agencies. So this basically represents U.S. administration's formal attempt to inform the U.S. Congress that what are its priorities, who are the challengers, who are the enemies, who are the frenemies, who are the enemies, who are the terrorists that the U.S. administration wants to consider as a major threat to U.S. national security. And this will be followed by equally elaborate, focused policy document, which is called U.S. National Security Strategy in the months to come, which will identify, after an intensive interagency process, what are the key elements of U.S. national power and instruments of policy that U.S. is likely to use in order to address the threats which have been identified in the recently released document. And then the third document will be the U.S. defense strategy. So basically, this is a macro document which identifies the threats, the nature, the form, the sources of threat to the U.S. And it will have a subsequent document which will build upon the response options and approaches that the U.S. will consider in pursuit of its national security as part of the U.S. national security strategy. And then another subset of that will be the U.S. defense strategy, which will be focusing on how the U.S. is likely to use its hard power, both in defense, deterrence, and destruction of its challengers, enemies, and other terrorist organizations. So this is how the U.S. administration works, and it is very important for the international community in terms of having an insight, a clear insight into the thinking and priorities and concerns of the Trump administration, and it will allow them to be better prepared in terms of how to engage the U.S. in the days and months to come.
Dr. Saab, it has mentioned also Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. It is the same TTP about which Pakistan remains highly concerned, because this is the organization which is currently carrying out attacks against Pakistan using Afghan territory. So the report also said that previously it has capabilities to target U.S. interest and U.S. installations. So how do you see the mentioning of TTP about which even Pakistan remained concerned? So how the Americans would be dealing, because as I said, Pakistan remained concerned. Pakistan also conveyed its concern to Kabul administration, but Kabul administration remained non-responsive to Pakistan's concern. So TTP in the recent past, the assessment says that it has links and it has expanded its network in collaboration with Al-Qaeda as well. So how serious is this TTP threat in the U.S. intelligence threat assessment?
I think it is very significant because in this document, the U.S. intelligence community has unanimously identified terrorist organizations as posing the most immediate threat to U.S. homeland security and national security. And in that context, the biggest current terrorist organization posing threat to U.S. at a global scale has been identified as ISIS or Daesh. However, in case of Afghanistan, TTP has also been recognized as the most significant threat to international peace and security for three reasons. That although it has been identified as currently focusing its attacks on Pakistan government, but two reasons have forced U.S. intelligence community to recognize TTP as posing a major threat to U.S. national security as well. The first reason, as you rightly pointed out, is its long-standing history of collaboration with Al-Qaeda. And secondly, its cooperation and support for carrying out terrorist attacks inside US territory. So this indicates that TTP's target and ambitions are no longer restricted to Pakistan and South Asia, and their relationships, long-standing relationship with Al Qaeda, as well as ambition of supporting terror activities inside US, makes US intelligence community really consider them seriously. And I think this also offers Pakistan a useful opportunity based on common concerns regarding not just the Daesh or ISIS, but also TTP, and build closer intelligence and counterterrorism cooperation in the days to come during the Trump administration, in order to promote greater peace and security efforts. The recognition of Daesh and TTP by the first most important US intelligence threat assessment provides Washington and Islamabad an opportunity
to get more closer
and expand their cooperation in intelligence and counterterrorism domains for the common interest of managing and defeating the global and regional threat of terrorism and promoting regional and global peace and security.
to observe at the same time. This is a significant intelligence assessment report. So you have also seen in the recent past some of the initiatives by Trump administration in cutting down its defense. The defense and intelligence community has been going through massive transformation. So threat remains large, huge. So on one hand, the new administration is cutting down its defense expenditure. On the other hand, there are huge threats to the American security. So how both things will go together then?
I think it's a very important question, Mateen Saab. And I think what Mr. Trump has indicated in his initial weeks in the Oval Office,
exactly,
it seems that his focus in terms of protecting U.S. national security and homeland security will be based primarily on very aggressive approach towards non-state actors, which includes global and regional terrorist organizations like Daesh. And the document recognizes not just the emergence of Daesh in Afghanistan, but also highlights the possibility that they could regain influence and space within Syria. And Al-Qaeda also has support in some countries in the Middle East, which has been recognized in this document. And the third aspect is that Trump administration views illegal immigration, narcotics also as a threat to U.S. national security. And we have already witnessed even U.S. drones, reconnaissance aircraft, and large-scale military deployment near Mexican border to prevent illegal migration and countering the drugs trafficking, which the U.S. has demanded both from Mexico and Canada. And Canada has already allocated more than $1 billion in improving the border security and reducing the threat of narcotics and illegal migration to the U.S. So that is one aspect. But in terms of U.S. Dealing with the global challenges,
exactly,
it is more likely that they will rely more on coercive diplomacy and sanctions regime, economic strangulation, tariff wars, and technology denial in order to slow down or disrupt Chinese rise. And it also seems that Trump administration, in order to engage Russia, fundamentally recognizes Moscow as a threat, but wants to isolate China from Russia by encouraging Moscow not to cooperate closely or deeply with China against the US. However, this attempt or approach is unlikely to succeed.
Dr. Saab, you have a very rich background in missile technologies and also nuclear studies. Specific question is in the assessment, there is also mention of Iran's nuclear capability. And this intelligent threat assessment has confirmed that Iran is not developing its nuke. So, how do you see this particular development in the assessment?
I think if we look at the entire document holistically, it identifies three types of threats to the US national security. First category belongs to the non-state actors based on global and regional terrorist organizations and criminal organizations. The second category belongs to the global challengers, and US has recognized China as the greatest challenge to the US supremacy at the global level in years to come in different domains, followed by Russia as a lingering global power, which poses a threat to the US at the global level. And the third category belongs to regional powers, which the US intelligence community considers as threat to US regional interests. And in the Middle East, US has identified Iran as the major threat to US interests in the Middle East, whereas in East Asia, it has recognized North Korea as posing a major threat to US interests in East Asian region. What is common in case of North Korea and Iran is the rapid missile buildup in both Pyongyang and Tehran. And the document recognizes that Iran has a very significant missile capability and drone manufacturing capability, which it has offered in terms of support for Russian war effort in Ukraine as well. And North Korea has also provided not just troops, but ammunition and other weapon systems to also assist Moscow in the Ukraine effort. So when you look at it holistically, it seems after the Syrian war, the current Ukraine war has helped Moscow piece together a sort of a military alliance based on close economic cooperation with China, but close defense and military cooperation with Iran and North Korea, which is assisting Moscow in its war effort against Ukraine, which is obviously traditionally led by not just Western Europe, but by the US as well. So in that context, US views Iran as a threat for three reasons. Because of its active support, active military support by supplying drones to Russia in the Ukraine conflict, by building up its own missile program, expanding its nuclear capability, short of building a nuclear weapon. But it recognizes that its current nuclear enrichment capability is far more significant than in the past. However, it also recognizes that the decision not to weaponize it has so far not been taken by the Iranian leadership. However, the most significant threat that Iran poses to the US is in the form of support for several organizations and non-state actors as part of Iran's indirect strategy to pressurize the US and Israel in the region, and also, but it also notices an Iranian interest in avoiding a direct conflict or confrontation with Israel or the US through indirect and active support for weaker but still significant non-state actors like Houthis, like the Hezbollah and Hamas as well, and also some organizations which are active in Iraq. So US continues to view Iran as a major source of threat for economic, political, security interests of the US in the region.
Dr. Saab, there is also a bill named Pakistan Democracy Act that has been tabled before US Congress. Why it has been so? And if we look into Pakistan's official policy, Pakistan recently arrested one of the most wanted terrorists, Sharifullah, handed over to Americans and got American appreciation. Pakistan remained one of the forefront state in fight against terrorism in all 18, 19 years in Afghanistan. So why such type of bills are presented in American Congress which are seeking sanctions against Pakistan? Why it is so?
I think Pakistan and US have had difficult but close collaboration across the entire history of Pak-US relations. And currently, we are witnessing a semblance of improving relations between Washington and Islamabad in the diplomatic, economic, and intelligence and counterterrorism domains based on common concerns regarding global and regional terrorist organizations. However, there have been a sanction list which has been recently issued by the US Department of Commerce, which also includes Pakistan. But that is not Pakistan centric, let me clarify, because that also includes China, that includes UAE, that includes Taiwan, which have very close and cordial security relations with the US. So that seems to be an attempt and part of the US global economic strategy, geoeconomic strategy to pressurize indirectly China, but also coerce and discourage other countries from engaging in major economic and defense cooperation with China. So that can be seen in that way. The bill that you mentioned, I think, can have three possible reasons. One is that it is also a reality that Pakistan's main opposition party, PTI, has a very active engagement and reach out policy within the US, and they have been reaching out to the US Congress on several occasions. You've heard several frequent questions being asked by pro-PTI journalists at the State Department briefing, and the actual formal US policy towards Pakistan has been very clear and consistent. You have noticed whether it is Biden administration or it is Trump administration, both have clearly avoided giving any comment which tantamount to interfering in Pakistan's domestic politics or judicial system. And the most recent question asked at the US State Department briefing, it was also discouraged that the US does not want to interfere in Pakistan's domestic politics. That remains to be the state policy of the US State Department and also both Biden and Trump administration. However, such efforts made by some individual congressmen represents and reflect their domestic political compulsions under the influence of their constituency politics, because that congressman could belong to a constituency where PTI is active and they are actively lobbying to use US good offices to pressurize Pakistan in order to gain relief for Imran Khan. But what is clear in this bill is that despite an intrusive suggestion, it is unlikely to affect the close and improving relations of both countries. And I'm sure Pakistan's own political party and government must equally consider equally active lobbying and reach out activities to share their alternative perspective with the US congressmen individually and collectively, rather than just resorting to reactive approach and criticism and condemnation of such efforts.
Thank you so much indeed for speaking to Program Insight in V News English on such a strategically important topic. And dear viewers, we are running out of time. Till our next program, goodbye and Allah Hafiz from studios.
Thank you.